Hello, hello, hello. Just checking in and doing a little energy update, synchronicity share, which of course is always based on my perception and my experiences. How often have I popped on here? If you've seen these videos before, welcome back. If you haven't, welcome. I quite frequently will use words such as, wow, can you believe the energies right now? Here we are again. A lot of the things I was experiencing in 2019 are happening now. I had a dear friend of mine, Jess, and she's like, you know, I feel that this is coming back around, and I'm definitely on board with that. It feels like 2019 is here again, right? But it's a different version of 2019. And I look at the cycle. I'm just jumping right into it. I look at the patterns and cycles of my reality and time, and it's like a spiral. And when you come back around the spiral, and let's say you look at a coil or a slinky, and you were once on the lower rung of one part of the slinky, now you're up on the higher rung of the slinky. But when you come around the circle, you get closer to that lower rung when you come around to a certain point. So it's like those two ends of the slinkies are almost touching, but one's right above the other. And it feels like things are very similar, but now you're a rung higher, so you can see back on the slinky right below from a different perspective, from a different angle, from a different, I'm hearing directive, you're in a different direction. But you're connecting in through this matrix. And it's funny because I had just seen a car with a big old sticker on it saying the red pill, which I think is obviously so synchronistic right now. And I am not referring to any agenda, by the way. When I think of the red pill, I think of literally the movie The Matrix. And I think about what that could mean, because there's different variations, there's different worlds, there's different information, there's different realities that we can, and I've done a video on this before, that we can get red pilled and open up to, right? It's not like you have an awakening and that's it. We might recognize one layer of something and think that that's our reality, and then we wake up in another dream once we take another red pill, and then we wake up into another dream and we learn more about another reality that's somehow beyond what we learned about in the first red pill. And I'm just sharing because I feel like it's infinite, but that's a whole other video. I know, I've said that so many times. So we're in this cyclical pattern, and we're being offered an opportunity to see, essentially, okay, so let me go back to the whole 2019 thing. I had quite a few synchronicities for a long time with numbers, and a lot of you guys experience those synchronistic numbers, right? You might see 1111 all the time. You might see one number all the time. You might see several numbers all the time. Mine change based on the messages that I'm receiving from the universe. Based on where I'm at vibrationally. So, for example, I tend to see 8s and 4s all the time, just in general. And I will wake up there'll be a 4 in the clock, there'll be a 4 or an 8 in my bill, in my gas. I go to the gas pump and it's a number 8. I could go on and on and on, and it becomes a normal thing. But today, specifically, I've been seeing 333s all day long. 333s and 123, followed by 333. Then again, I saw something that was 123. Then later on, so I could go on and on and on. Later on, I saw 234. So we could play with these synchronicities, and they show up for us oftentimes to guide us, to show us that we're in flow, and to communicate certain geometric times table configurations, frequencies, and patterns from the field back to us so that we can recognize them within our body. I'm trying to slow down a little bit. I have my massage table, and it just, if I go too fast, if I stop too fast, it falls over. My office. Either way, my point in saying this is, if we go back to the Slinky example, we are in a different frequency, but many of the things that we were experiencing from 2 years ago are coming up again. And this is not saying this happens every 2 years. For whatever reason, based on this cyclical energetic frequency and how time operates in this particular maybe dimensional field, those things, people, circumstances, places, and experiences are showing up again in my reality, in my friend Jess's reality, in my friend Candace's reality, and in other friends that I speak with, but also that I share experiences with, that I connect with, but also clients that I've been working with. What I've also been, so we're being gifted the opportunity to look at it again and operate or connect with it or disconnect from it or experience it in a different way, in a different experience, from a different perspective, as a different person, because we are not the same person we were 2 years ago. Therefore, these people that might come back into our lives, or these experiences that might come back into our lives, hold a completely different way of interacting. We have a different way of interacting with them, if that makes sense. We're making the choice of how we want to do that this time around. And some of that might require us to let it go and be done with it. Others might just require us to look at it and say, okay, I see how I would have responded to this 2 years ago, and I see how I'm responding to it now, and it's very different. It's very different this time around, which can be very empowering. It can create a different frequency and vibration in us. It increases our knowledge, our knowingness, our ability to see beyond what we were able to see about this person, place, or thing 2 years ago. It gives us an opportunity to connect it with more dots than we might have had a connection to back then. The other common theme that I'm seeing is, I just lost it. We're in between, and I have referred to this as a portal. And so if you visualize going through a portal and you visualize it like a wormhole, not to say that I know exactly what a wormhole looks, and I don't know if it's the same as what I envision versus what somebody else might envision, but let's just picture a short tunnel or a node on a crystal. And if you look up a crystal and you see the lattice work on the crystal, there's all these nodes that connect the lines and that create the shape. So we might decide we're in the middle of this node, and it's the connection points are here and here. That node, from one perspective, and the example that I'm using it for, is almost a space in between, right? So many people are feeling this in-between space, leaving one line in the lattice work, stepping through the portal into another tunnel, into another place, into another fill in the blanks, relationship, reality, job. We could go with basic stuff, right? Or we could say that we're going into the next. I see it based on the clients I've been working with, Many of them are going into the next stage of their life, their next stage of development, their next stage of expansion. Whereas a lot of people I worked with over the course of the last 2 years didn't feel that way. They felt like they were on hold. They felt like they were in a holding pattern. To me, this is less of a holding pattern and it's more of a space in between, if that makes sense. Before, it felt more like it was going backwards or being put on pause. This is not a pause button. This is actually happening. There's a movement, there's a flow to it. Yet at the same time, it's giving us an opportunity to explore that node and receive, feel, experience everything from that perspective. And I used the tornado as an example today in my session. I've used this example before. Let's say you are in the center of a tornado and you pause the tornado and you look, and let's call that the node. And let's say through, if you picture all these things around the tornado, all the stuff that's sucked into the tornado, and then there's tunnels going through this big funnel. You can then, and you see the attachments and you see everything that's connected, but you also see that you're no longer, I almost see those cords aren't there, if that makes sense. Now we could say everything is string theory, everything is attached, there's cords to everything, and I do agree with that to a certain extent. But what I see energetically is a lot of, I just see sovereignty. I see a person standing in the tornado, and if you picture cords all around them, they're not attached to them. Until we move into that space, and then we decide to connect with other cords moving forward. Does that make sense? I know sometimes my visuals aren't necessarily the best, but this is what I see energetically. I see this happening for a lot of people. Do I see this happening for everyone? No. But I do see the ability to differentiate, whereas perhaps before people weren't able to differentiate that there is an ending before they go into the beginning, which goes me into the next, you guys, it's so funny. I'm looking right now at a nucleus on the side of this truck. It's a power truck, and it's literally a sphere. And if you look at it, it's got 1, 2, 3. Did I say this earlier? Did I delete it? With the 3 realities superimposed on top of each other. I think I've talked about it so much. I think I say it in every video. But I see 3 circles all spinning around each other with the electron shells outside of it attached. I wish I could just draw that. So let's picture a circle and a ball on it. And that's the electron, right? And there's 3 of them all spinning around each other. So there's 3 separate balls all spinning around each other. And in the center is the core. And I literally see it's paused. And you can see each ball and where they're attached and the separation. I don't know. This is big, you guys, from my perspective. It's a big forward momentum. And so for those of you watching that might still feel, no, I feel stuck still, I don't see what's in front of me, I feel confused, you're not the only one. I've connected and worked with quite a few people this week that feel that way. The biggest reason my clients I've worked with feel that way is because they've just had something major happen in their lives. They've just lost a loved one. Their whole life has been rocked, right? Their whole way of living has changed. They have a family that they're supporting that are going through trauma. So trauma is the big reason. For some, I'm parked. For some, it's self-inflicted trauma. It's wounds that we keep digging up, and for whatever reason, usually it's a habitual pattern that we're comfortable or used to, not necessarily consciously doing, and we're reintroducing it over and over again. For others, it's the fear of what's to come and not knowing. But what I've been guided to share with a lot of people this week and in general, and I've experienced it myself, is once we come back to that center, the nucleus of the atom, and we watch all these electrons spinning around us, just for a visual, or we stay in the center of the tornado and we watch everything that's spinning around us from I'm hearing a standstill, but it's like be still and know, then everything will then shift into a direction that gives us the ability to go back into creation mode and out of chaos mode. And when we are able then to take the next step forward, we do it with more clarity. Oftentimes we feel stuck because we're paralyzed by fear of what could be, or making a mistake, or having somebody, there's so many reasons, but I'm just going to sit with that for a moment. But once we move into a place of consciousness, so if somebody out there is in that place of, well, the world's gone crazy and it's total chaos, yeah, from one perspective, that's true. And that's one of those rings. And that's the ring that we're tuning into. But all the realities are superimposed now. And so we can see all of them from our view here, from our position here. That doesn't mean we have to jump into that ring and get caught up in the spin. And I've said that before. It's work, you guys, not to. Especially if you've been caught up in I'll come back to the agendas. Whatever agenda it is, whatever end of the polarity it is, and getting stuck on that merry-go-round, it's time to get into the center of the merry-go-round and look at everything spinning around us and make the choice point from a centered and cohesive place of knowingness. We could call it the golden ratio, right? The golden spiral. We then emanate, and I'm hearing emancipate from and emanate out from us that which is, I'm hearing the creator guild. So we then become the guilders, the welders, the creators, the bridge makers,